Honey, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Honey authenticity is all over the food fraud news this month. There's good news and there's bad. Here's a quick rundown from me, Karen Constable of authenticfood.co. It's been a tough year for honey. There has been lots of commentary around food fraud in honey this year, following a big recall at the end of last year in the United Kingdom, and controversy over honey testing methods. It's never good to hear about food fraud issues, but there is a silver lining. So here's the good. The Canadian government last year committed to spending more than $20 million on food fraud testing and intelligence gathering over a 5-year period. Honey is one food product that's been chosen for surveillance by the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. The CFIA published their honey surveillance results this month, and guess what? Authenticity is up and food fraud is down compared to last year. Hooray! The CFIA sampled both the marketplace at large and also a number of bulk honey importers and processors that were deemed to be high risk. Only 13% of samples were deemed not authentic compared to 22% the previous year. So that is a significant improvement. Hooray! The CFIA used the results of their previous honey surveillance work to design a targeted sampling plan. Those samples that they targeted had risk factors such as a history of non-compliance, known preventive controls deficits, and unusual trading patterns. This type of targeted sampling, in which previous results are used to focus on known problem areas, is a great way to maximise the value of authenticity testing, which can be really expensive. Way to go, Canada! Of those samples collected from the marketplace, that is, without being the targeted ones, targeted towards high-risk products, 98% of them were authentic. And of those, of that group, the only products that had unsatisfactory results were imported products. So testing equals good. Hooray. For my food safety viewers, it's worth noting that unlike, say, micro-testing, food authenticity testing can not only provide valuable insights into the occurrence of food fraud, but it also in itself helps to prevent food fraud. The fact that someone is paying attention and doing testing can effectively drive reductions in fraud, as we've seen with the Canadian honey testing regime. My prediction is that next year's surveillance will have even better results than this year's. And that's something to be happy about. Now, let's talk about the bad. The Canadian government isn't the only one that's been testing honey this year. The Indian Centre for Science and Environment and a government-funded institute in the Philippines have also published honey testing results this month. In the Philippines, a survey of 74 locally produced honeys purchased online found that 87% of them contain sugar syrup, i.e. that renders them not authentic honey if they've got sugar syrup in them. More than 80% of those products actually contained no honey at all and were just made from sugar syrup. These are some of the worst authenticity statistics that I have ever seen. Local products purchased in brick and mortar stores fared a little bit better in this study, but the results were still pretty bad, with around 75% of samples containing adulterants. Interestingly, in the Philippines, imported honeys performed actually better than the local honeys. So that was the opposite of what was seen in Canada. So those results were pretty bad. But it is good to see authenticity being done in the public arena much more frequently than it was in the past. So we've done the good, done the bad, now it's time for the ugly. And yep, I gotta tell you, this is really ugly. There's testing and then there's testing, right? India is another country that is funding food adulteration prevention. And of course that's a good thing. And they're also testing honey. However, like many countries, India's legal definition of honey is based on the chemical signature of the sugars in the product, which is verified using C3 and C4 testing. In December 2020, the Centre for Science and Environment, the CSE in India, reported a very high proportion of inauthentic honeys in a survey which made use of both C3, C4 tests and more sophisticated testing that makes use of NMR analysis, nuclear magnetic resonance testing. Some honeys passed the C3, C4 tests, but failed in the NMR tests. Investigators from CSC claim that this is due to the products being made with special syrups that are designed to trick the C3, C4 tests. They allege that these syrups can be purchased cheaply via online trade portals. The syrups are apparently marketed as all-pass syrups because the suppliers claim that they can pass the Indian government's authenticity tests. The CSE says that their own testing has confirmed that samples containing up to 50% of all-pass syrups pass the Indian government tests. So to wrap up, there's big money to be made from food fraud, as I've said before. I have even heard it said that olive oil fraud is 3 times more profitable than smuggling cocaine, as well as being much less risky if you get caught. And where there's money to be made, criminals will find ways to cheat the system. Sadly, worldwide volumes of honey production are way down and predicted to fall even further due to climate change and bee colony diseases. That makes honey more scarce, more valuable, and as a result, more profitable to fake. Honey fraud is unfortunately here to stay. My hope is that organisations like the Canadian Food Inspection Agency and CSE in India continue to keep the pressure on honey fraudsters. Let's keep making their lives hell.